Welcome to episode 98 of the Thunder Underground podcast. My name is Trent, and I'm joined by Jason.
Hello, hello.
We've got a great one this week. We've got Chris Green on this podcast.
Yes, guitarist extraordinaire.
Yeah, extraordinaire. Virtuoso is a good word to throw around here, too.
Definitely.
Yeah, Chris Green's a solo guitarist. He's also, I say solo guitarist because he's got a new solo EP, his first. He's also in the band Tyketto. He's in the band Rubicon Cross. He's been in Furion. This guy is, when you think of, holy crap, that guy's badass, this guy is on that list.
Definitely. He's got a new EP out, instrumental guitar solo offering called Unveil, and it's a face melter.
Definitely. You got to check this out. We're going to get into that here in just a bit.
Yeah.
Before we do, we're getting inching closer to that illustrious number 100.
Yes.
And we've got a good one planned for that one, I think, and you'll hear that here in the next couple weeks.
Of course.
But here we are at 98. There's a great Night Flight Orchestra song called 1998.
Really?
If you people don't know it, why did you say really? You know that song.
Well,
it's on the first album.
Yeah, but you know me. I just put in a CD and,
right.
and I don't pay attention to stuff. I just listen to it. Sorry.
If you're not a fan of Night Flight Orchestra, do yourself a favor and become one.
Exactly.
They are as good as it gets. They've got 2 albums out. Okay, that was a total tangent. I don't know where it came from. But.
That's what we do, man. We do tangents. We get off on shit real quick.
Right. Well, speaking of tangents, you see this story a few days ago that Phil Lewis quits LA Guns?
Yeah. I don't know.
I mean, this is like the greatest story in like recent times. Like, here's a press release because I'm quitting LA Guns to join LA Guns.
Yeah, I know.
I mean,
dude, don't get me started. I don't know. It's a band I never really. I mean, I could probably tell you 2 LA Guns songs. You're more of an LA Guns guy than me, and sometimes these bands split off and do different. I don't know. It gets a little silly.
But I guess it's a legality thing.
It is.
I just wanted to bring it up because it's just funny because you never see that, like a press release about leaving a band, and he doesn't name that that's the band he's going to, but everybody knew that's what he was talking about.
Yeah. And
then the news came out like 2 days later that that's what it was. Anyway, for those of you who don't know, they're one of those bands that had 2 versions out there, and he quit the version he was in so he could go play with Tracy Guns again, basically.
Yeah.
I don't know if they can call it LA Guns or not, but it won't matter because they'll draw more than the other one.
That's right.
With those 2 guys together.
Exactly. So. Yeah, it all gets a little weird, but, as the world turns, as the rock world turns.
Yeah. Well, let's just get back on the topic at hand.
Yes, why not?
We don't have a lot of stuff we're going to ramble about this week because we want to play some music for you. And, of course, the music's going to be from Chris Green. And like Jason said, he's got this new EP out called Unveil. It actually came out just this past week, last Friday. So now what you need to do is go to Amazon or iTunes, download the thing, or go on chrisgreenmusic.com and buy the thing. And if you buy it, it comes autographed. I think it's shipped for, $9 or something?
Yes. I like I said, I got mine, ordered mine, so signed, and can't wait for it to show up on the doorstep.
Yeah. There's 5 songs on this thing, and they're all great.
Yes.
Instrumental guitar work, but they all have a little bit, different feel to them, which is great. And we'll get into that here in a bit, but let's just get right into this song. This is the title track, Unveil. you go, Unveil from Chris Green off his EP of the same name. That thing just right out the gate. Epic guitar playing straight through this thing. I love how anytime you hear songs like this, your mind, you instantly are drawn to that guitar because that's what's on Showcase. But I love how the rhythm under it has a real melodic sense, sound to it, and that kind of takes this thing in a couple different directions. And it's just, I don't play guitar, but I can obviously hear this and know that this is freaking amazing. It's like you mentioned when we were listening to it, it kind of had a Chris Broderick feel at times, and that's cool as hell because we're both big fans of his. So anyway, as a guitarist, what did you hear the first time you hit play on this?
What I enjoyed about these 5 songs, one, this EP it's a great collection of just showing you everything that Chris Green is capable of, to the umpteenth degree. He just showcases everything and puts it all out there. And 2, and maybe most importantly, it's most importantly to me, every song just, you see it paints a picture, every song has a different color or, it evokes a feeling.
Right.
And each one does that in a different way. And that's how you got something. You can play a million notes, that's great, but when you can do that and tap into, the soul or the emotion or the feeling, that's money. That's what you're going for. And Chris Green does that splendidly.
Yeah. Well, not only with this EP, like we talked about earlier, and I hear about in this interview, he's also in Tyketto.
Yes. And
in a band called Rubicon Cross. And both these Tyketto's album just came out in October. Rubicon Cross has been out a couple years. But I highly suggest anyone that's a fan of hard rock go check out both these albums as well.
Definitely.
They're both different from each other. Of course, Tyketto. They're more along the AOR kind of hard rock vein.
Mm-hmm.
And then Rubicon Cross has Cj Snare from Firehouse.
Yes.
Which we all know from the heyday of glam, but this is a bit heavier than what people would know from Firehouse. And
it is.
Chris Green obviously helps take it to that point, and it's with CJ's vocals over it. That album is just balls out from start to finish, just hard rock and just the stuff that I've always gravitated to since I was a kid.
Yeah, definitely.
And
I was glad to hear that they're maybe, getting together and working on some new stuff. That was really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's got that going, and then Tyketto's going out on tour in January in Europe. So if you're out there, get out there and see this guy play, see the whole, see Tyketto. Can't imagine that, that's one of the bands from that era I never got a chance to see live.
Yeah.
And, I'd love to, especially after hearing this newest album. I think, with all the stuff he's got going on, it's really cool to see a guy like this tap into a few different things. And they're all in that melodic vein, but they're all different from each other.
Yeah, exactly. There's a common thread, but they've also got, their own identities.
Right.
And he's doing it flawlessly.
Yep. Well, we mentioned his website is chrisgreenmusic.com. Our website is thethunderunderground.com. We've got all our previous podcasts on there. If this is your first time listening, we appreciate it. And I think let's just get right into this now, because we got a nice lengthy chat here with Chris Green. Your solo EP just dropped a couple days ago. Both of us checked it out. It's really good stuff and really enjoying it. And how does it feel to finally get this thing out?
It's been such a long time coming for this thing. It was, I probably beat Def Leppard with, how long you can possibly wait to make an album. This thing. It feels great that it's finally out and it's being well received, and thank you very much for the the kind words about it as well. It's always more of a gamble when you're doing these things completely by yourself, because you know, when a band releases an album, there's this kind of like camaraderie of like, you know, if you don't like this, then whatever, we don't care, we're a band of brothers sort of thing. But you're really out there on your own when you do something like this. So it's kind of like throwing myself to the mercy of everybody.
Well, you know, you said it took you some time. That was kind of one of our questions, you know, if it came together quickly or over time. Was it just kind of, you know, you'd work on it in between other projects, or, you know, that kind of thing?
It was let me try. How can I accurately answer that one? The easiest part of it was actually the writing. All of that came together quite quickly, because the style that I was moving towards, you know, as I was slowly coming up with ideas, was quite a progressive way of writing. And I'd been in like progressive rock bands when I was younger. And it was kind of just like tapping back into that, really. I mean, there's no vocal theme, you know, there's no lyrical content, so it's very easy to just move into different musical passages. And if you guys have listened to the whole EP, you know, there's a track like Once Forgotten, where it's pretty much like a storyboard song, where it moves into completely different sections continuously throughout the track. So there's no repeated sections really in the song. You know, much like an actual story. So it was kind of easy, because I would be able to put it down and then come back to it, and it was just like, it was kind of like one of those things you do as a kid when you draw on a piece of paper and you draw like a head and then fold it over, and someone else would draw a neck and fold it over, and, you know, and see what it looks like at the end of it. And, you know, some of the tracks were a bit like that, really. But when it came to the recording, things kind of slowed down a bit. It was a lot more demanding in the studio than I was expecting, you know, because when you record a solo for a normal album, say with Tyketto or Rubicon Cross, you only have to do like 1 or 2 solos a day, and you mix it in between all of the other playing. But when you're continuously playing this kind of guitar, you know, your fingers start wearing out quite quickly, and they were just, it was like carnage after the first couple of days. And I thought, I don't know how I'm going to get through this. You know, I'm trying everything from liquid skin to, you know, all of the old wives' tales about how you can, you know, firm up calluses and all this kind of stuff. So we had to reschedule on a couple of times, and really the whole body of why it took so many years is because after the first mixes, it wasn't coming together how I wanted it. For some reason, I couldn't put my finger on it. It just wasn't sounding right. And I got really discouraged, and I literally just told the engineer and the producer, let's just leave this for the moment. And I left it for like 3 years. And the engineer finally got back to me and said, why did you leave it? You know, why don't we get back to this? And I was still at that point, I was still a little, no, I'm not really that bothered about it. And he kind of took it on himself to do a mix of one of the tracks. And when it came back, it was like a lightning bolt. All of a sudden, I was just really back into it again. And I had exactly the same enthusiasm as when I first started it. So for whatever reason, that's why it took so long. There was literally 3 years in the middle that I wouldn't even listen to the mixes. So,
well, maybe that time helped, you know?
Yeah, I believe it did, because now, you know, I can actually play it again now. You know, before I would, you know, I'm my own worst critic. I'll be the first person to admit that as well. And being in the studio with me when mixing is occurring is, I really just don't envy the people that have to work with me in that situation. You know, because I'm always like, yeah, go back. Yeah, can you turn it up a fraction? No, turn it back down again. I don't know. Let's try something completely different. You know, I can be all over the place. So, yeah, it probably did help for me to get back into it.
Well, did any of those songs take a completely different turn after you came back to them?
Well, no, I kept the structures pretty much the same. In fact, the track Unveil, we ended up actually using the whole lead guitar line from the demo, because I was, sometimes when you record, there's just a vibe that you capture. And producers call this whole thing demoitis, which is when you get so involved with what you've done in the demo that you almost create an impossible task for yourself when it comes to recording the actual album. And you can see it on producers' faces when you go in the studio and you start talking about demos. Their eyes just roll into the back of their heads because they know what's coming next. And in the end, we had a crack at the Unveil lead lines, and we both just agreed it's just not sounding the same. It's not sounding as good as it was when you demoed it. So we literally just took the whole lead track. I was very careful that I did all of the tracks to the same tempos, so I'd be able to use things like string sections and stuff like that. So it just slotted in there, and all of a sudden the spark was back in the song. So yeah, no real structure changes. The producer did force me out of my comfort zone and make me improvise on a few of the tracks. I'm a very meticulous player, and I like things very worked out. And when someone drags me out of that, I start to cower in the corner a little bit. So, yeah, I still don't like doing it, but I did it anyway. And I have to admit, the stuff that we came out with when we were doing some of that improvising was very interesting, and it actually kind of forced me into a new way of thinking when I've been writing subsequently. Like the last Tyketto record, when we did the solos for that, I just kind of winged it. I'd like hit record, and I would just record about 8 different solos. And, every now and again, you just come up with something on the spot that you wouldn't do if you were just sitting down trying to work everything out. So that's really the only changes from the originals.
As far as like the drums and bass go on the EP, did you write that stuff yourself after, or did you bring in musicians to write the tracks for you or help finish the tracks?
The bass, one of my closest friends, Simon Farmery, he was in Pride and in Rubicon Cross and Furion. He was in all of those bands with me. He's from England, but also emigrated to America. So he was meant to be the guy playing bass on it, because it's, as you heard, some of it's quite demanding. There's a lot of time changes and tempo changes. There's a lot of notes in that. But we just couldn't get our schedules together. And so I ended up playing the bass on it, which I really would rather have not done. I'm a real believer that fingers bass players, they just have a really good sound about them. The good ones anyway. But the drums, I actually got a guy called Garrett Whitlock, who is the drummer in Tremonti.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And he was living just around the corner from me at the time. So we were both very close to Stone Mountain, where we recorded at Rick's studios. And he was amazing. It's very rare that you get a drummer that is a hard hitter, but also extremely technically proficient. And Garrett has all of that stuff in spades. It was really, really impressive. If he still lived in this area, I would probably be bugging him about taking this out live.
Do you have any plans to take it out live?
It's I would really like to do it. It's when I first wrote it, I wasn't thinking about that at all. I was just thinking about getting it out and expressing myself. After the recording process, I realized that if I was going to take this out live, I would really, really have to get my shit together, because it was, it's a lot of notes. It's a lot to remember. And if anyone loses their place, it's kind of like, how do we get back into this again? So I don't claim to be a dream theater know-it-all kind of character. I wish I had that kind of brain capacity for notes. So if I can find the right musicians, then yeah, I think I would like to take it out live. It's just where I live here in Atlanta, I don't know those kind of musicians, and it really is the kind of thing that you'd have to really rehearse, so I wouldn't want to just fly in somewhere, try and rehearse it, and then go and play a show. I'd really want to live with these tracks with the musicians for a while. So if that happens, then yes.
Cool. Something I've always kind of wondered is, how do you, when you write an instrumental song, how do you name it? Or how do you come up with a name to go with what you created?
It's a good question. Do you know what? No one's actually asked me that before. Let me see. Do you know what? It's probably, I find it reasonably easy, because during the songwriting process for any of the bands that I've been in and written in, I am continuously coming up with just bizarre or stupid names during the writing process when there's no lyrics on it. So if you saw some of the tracks from the Tyketto records, some of them were called Stripper or Peanuts, or just ridiculous names, or Thundering Octopus or something like that.
Still Panther song names.
Right. So coming up with the names was reasonably easy. The reason Once Forgotten is called that is because I wrote the entire track, which is the most technical track I've ever written, and then completely forgot about it. And when I was trying to pick songs out, I was like, oh man, I really need something that's just like, and I was racking my brains thinking, I'm sure I wrote something, and I just came across this track that was called Solo Prog Tune and played it, and I was like, it was like a 6-minute epic progressive tune, and I couldn't remember writing a single note of it. So I don't know what happened, whether it was just where I was in some bizarre trance when I wrote the thing, or I think what it must be is because I think I wrote it when I was on a plane on the way to America. And I probably drank too much red wine and got into my headphones on the laptop and wrote the tune, and then woke up and forgot about it. So that's where that one was named Unveil, because it was the first track I wrote, and so I thought it was I guess a pompous way of saying the unveiling of me as a solo musician. Undefeated, because that was very much about my father, and very much about his attitude. Before he died, he was just that kind of character that he would just never let anything get to him. And he went through cancer twice and alcoholism and a bunch of other horrible challenges in life. And so that's where that one came from. And the reason one's called Remember is because after that problem with Once Forgotten, I swore I'd never forget a track again. So I deliberately named that one Remember, so that I remember it. And Welcome for a Soldier was already named because it's a cover of one of my father's 70s prog rock band. It's like a 1971 prog band called Deep Feeling, and I did basically an instrumental version of the opening track on the Guillotine album.
Nice.
Oh, wow.
Well, and it's funny you mentioned that. That goes to my next question. Was that song really stood out to me? I thought it went through every emotion a soldier could go through in his career.
Right.
Majestic and sad, dangerous, victorious.
Yeah.
That was one I really dug that one.
Oh, I'm really glad, man. I mean, that was when I first had a go at doing that, and it was really soon after Dad died, and it's weird when you listen to a track that's got lyrics in it, and then you try and do an instrumental version of it. If the lyrics are already very meaningful, you're aware that you have to try and put that emotion across with the instrument, because there's no lyrics anymore to tell the story. And so what I did is I tried a few different techniques. I used an EBow. I'm not sure if you know what an EBow is.
Yes.
Yeah, so I used one of those to try and create a much more vocal sound. You know, it actually came out kind of sounding more like a kind of Steve Vai kind of sound, which wasn't deliberate. It's just really the nature of how those EBows sound, you know.
Yeah.
And the mid sections, I deliberately made really eerie. If you heard the original that my dad's band did, the whole mid section where there's all those real weird swirling noises was actually all a cappella vocals with them sit. It was like a monastery chant, and it was really eerie. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to create loads of strange noises and make it really mysterious, you know, and like you say, a bit creepy. But I love it. It all comes back round again to the really chirpy part of the song, and then it has this whole departure at the end of it. So I like that you like that one, man, because it's instrumental music. I think is a really wonderful thing. It's where music started. You know, we didn't all just like burst into song and start singing lyrics about dinosaurs or something around a campfire. You know, it was all about just the notes and how you can move people with that. You know, I love classical music, and that's had a big influence in my writing. I love the way you can have movements, to create emotion, invoke emotion, and if you can do that without using lyrics, I think that's quite a wonderful thing.
Yeah, that's definitely something to tap into.
Reach by Tyketto has been out now about a month and a half or two. Great album as well, and you kind of alluded to that with writing solos, and I was curious if that was kind of what you did with Tyketto, or if you came in and you helped with the riffs as well and the song structure, or if you're just strictly on the solos.
No, I was a really big part of the writing on that album.
Okay.
It was I can tell you now that was the most bizarre writing process that I've ever been involved in. We still laugh and cry about it. At the moment, it was most bands, the drummer's not usually like heavily involved in the writing process. So we tried some very backward things, and Mike, the drummer, there was times when he would just go downstairs into his basement and record himself playing drums for like 15 minutes. And then he would send me, it was just like loads of different drum beats and him just going mad. It actually kind of sounded like, Animal from the Muppets, basically, just someone going crazy on the drums for about 15 minutes. And he'd send me those drums, and then I would literally just chop them apart and put them on my MP3 player and listen to them in the car. And I would write riffs in my head over some of these drum beats. And I'd then send the riffs back to him. He would then come up with a more solid drum beat. It would go back to me again. It would go like backwards and forwards like 20 times before Danny would even get the song. Then Danny would like maybe change the arrangement a bit. The vocals would go on. The key might change. The tempo might change. And some of these songs literally took weeks to come together. Oh. And some of them were really quick. They were old-fashioned process where Danny would send us an acoustic and a vocal, and we would have to create a rock song. One of the tracks, the title track, Reach, was actually a ballad, and he just sent himself and an acoustic guitar. And when we sent it back to him, it was this huge opus, and he was like, "What the fuck have you done to my song?" but it just worked, And the thing that I love about Tyketto is that we respect everyone's ideas, and we let them run with it. If they've got an idea, it's like, all right, go on then, do your thing, and we'll see how it turns out. And rarely did we write something where it just didn't work. There wasn't like a huge amount of songs left over at the end of that. We used almost everything. And if we didn't use it, it's because we didn't have time to work on it. But every single song that we demoed went on the album. So it was, it was interesting, very interesting process. But I was a huge part of the writing. Yeah, I mean, Letting Go. I basically wrote the entire music track and just sent it to Danny, and he put lyrics over it. That one came together really quickly. Riffs and stuff. Me and Mike's mad creations in our basements.
Nice. Well, how did you get hooked up with the Tyketto guys?
In 2003, maybe it was before 2003. Let me try and... Okay, what I do know is in 2003, the band I was in at the time was called Pride. They were a melodic rock band in England. And we scored a tour supporting Firehouse. That's when I first met CJ.
Nice.
So it was us and Danny's solo band, Vaughan, were the main support. So it was Firehouse, Vaughan, and Pride. And so I had known Danny previously to that. He'd stayed at my house, and I had got up at one of these festivals in England, and Pride, without the vocalist, backed him to play a couple of songs like Forever Young and Strength in Numbers or something like that. You know, because he would do an acoustic set, and then the surprise to the fans were the whole band would suddenly come on stage right at the end, and they'd get the full versions of the tracks that they love. So we did that, and me and Danny stayed friends. And after that 2003 tour, you know, the friendship solidified a lot more. And he'd always said, "Oh, I'd love to see what would happen if me and you wrote together," you know, because he liked my style of writing within Pride. And it just never really happened. And I got a call out of nowhere in I think like October or November 2013, and he just said, "Hey man, hope you're doing well. How would you feel about joining Tyketto?" Just really pretty much that blunt. He was like, "I know you're busy, but you know, if you'd consider it, that'd be great." And it was really humble. And it was at a time where I just had to leave Furion because the logistics of me traveling back to England all the time for shows just wasn't, you know, it was a logistical nightmare. So I actually, for probably for the first time in a decade or more, I found myself bandless. And so I was just like, yeah, great, let's do it. He was like, cool, I'll get you in an email with Mike and let's make it happen. You know, it wasn't like an audition process. As far as I know, I don't think they even asked anybody else. That's what they said. There's probably like 10 guitar players out there going, well, that's what you think, but you're a number like 15 on the list. But it worked out. It was a really good fit. And the greatest compliment really that I get is that when people see us live, they say that I really fit in with that band, and that it seems like it was a very natural insertion, you know, to the band. And it feels like that on stage too. It feels very comfortable.
Well, a lot of your stuff like Furion and Rubicon Cross and your solo work, you know, has more of a heavy edge than Tyketto does. So when you came into that mix, like how it wasn't like something you had to adapt to, like you felt it natural as well?
Yeah, I mean, the bands that I'd been in prior to Furion were all of that kind of like cock rock, you know, as I call it, you know, like that genre, you know, bubblegum ballads and, you know, smiling while you're on stage, for God's sakes, you know, like something that just, you know, and I thought this would be nice. I don't have to grimace anymore. I can actually like smile at someone in the crowd because I'm actually enjoying myself. So it was actually really easy. I always found that type of music it just feels really good to play it, you know? I mean, you know, when you listen to that kind of music, it makes you smile a lot more than, you know, I mean, I don't put on Slayer and sit there with my headphones on smiling thinking, oh, this is so lovely. You know, it's exactly what I need on a Sunday afternoon. You You know, whereas you put on Bon Jovi and you're like, there you go. It's like putting on your favorite sweater. You know, it's just comfortable.
Yeah, it's feel good music. It's called that for a reason.
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely.
So it was quite easy. I find it an easy style to play, and surprisingly, I find it quite an easy style to write as well. I think they were a little worried actually, because the guys in Tyketto were aware of, you know, the style that I was into, and I am into much heavier music. Like if someone said, you know, what do you listen to when you're in the gym or something, I mainly listen to Mastodon, Tool, Opeth, Baroness, The Sword. It's all stoner meets progressive meets heavy music.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think they were a little worried that I was going to come out with some like drop B tuning riffs. Funny enough, the last track on the album is actually drop B. It's actually like the same tuning as like Black Label Society, but it's just not played in a way that makes it sound like that.
Yeah.
And that was a nightmare in the studio, actually. Tuning down to those kind of tunings is, you know, the guitar strings are like telephone wires.
Yeah, they get pretty loose.
Really loose.
Well, we've talked about writing with Tyketto and with your EP. Like, how was writing with CJ and Rubicon Cross? Like, how did you guys mesh when you started?
That was, I really enjoyed those writing sessions, actually, because that was the birth of me becoming or getting Americanized, I suppose. You know, I'd stayed in America a few times before with people, but when me and CJ first met on that 2003 tour, and he said, I really would like you to do to play on my solo album. And originally he wanted to write with me, but it was going to be called Cj Snare or the Cj Snare Project or something. And after the first few writing sessions, you know, he flew to my place in Brighton and I would fly out to his place in Wisconsin, and we'd stay in this lovely house, you know, with a grand piano, and, you know, and it would be snowing, and I was like, this is what I want. This is, you know, I'm sitting there in England and it's cold and grey and miserable, and everyone seems miserable because it's miserable. and I'm like, this is more like it, you know. And I found that whenever I'd go over to his place, I'd write all of the really nice songs because I felt all cozy again, you know, like in this like great place, the fire's on, it's roaring, there's the grand piano, let me grab my acoustic guitar and, you know, we'll sit around like the Brady Bunch and write some nice tunes or something. It was great, and it was a very easy process. I guess the most difficult part about that, and we had a plethora of songs to choose from because, again, that album took so long to come out because we were just continuously experimenting with the sound. He wanted to do something very different and something that wasn't going to be like a Firehouse kind of sound, which is incredibly difficult when you're Cj Snare because your voice is so distinctive. You know, if he like did a Sepultura cover, it would probably still sound like Firehouse. But, so I think that's why it started getting heavier with Rubicon Cross, because it really pushed away from that Firehouse kind of sound. And, you know, the tunings got lower and lower, and, you know, he started kind of just morphing his voice and putting a little more growl into it. And the more he did that, the more we would experiment with songs of that nature. So when I listen back to that Rubicon Cross album, it reminds me of some fantastic times in the writing process. But I have to be honest, when I listen to it, it's very evident to me that the songs were written over a large period of time. You know, because I can hear the difference between a track like Bleed With Me and Shine. Mm-hmm. You know, and, you know, it's... And I wonder whether when people listen to that record, whether they thought that it was a little schizophrenic, that it was many different styles. The original album title was supposed to be like True Diversity, because that's how we felt that we were during the writing process. We were just going to say, look, whatever, stick the middle finger up to the the industry and the general public, and just say, this is what we want to do. I don't care if you think some of it's heavy and some of it's light and blah blah blah. But we ended up not calling it that. So there was some funny names, and the reason why it ended up being called Rubicon Cross, incidentally, is because the more we wrote together, the more CJ was like, this isn't a solo thing anymore. This is a band, and I want to get a band together. I want this to actually be something we can go out and do. And so that's why it slowly changed from the Cj Snare project into an actual full band. And the Rubicon Cross, the reason why we named it that is because it's something my father used to say as well. I don't know if you know what crossing the Rubicon, I don't know if you know what that phrase means, but it basically means the point of no return. It's when Caesar's army had to cross the Rubicon River in order to chase down the enemy. And if they committed to crossing that river, it would mean that they were too far away from their supply chain. So they were basically committing themselves to battle. Winning or failing, they just basically threw it out there. So the crossing of the Rubicon was always a really cool, nice phrase that I like. So that's why we ended up morphing it and changing it to the band name.
Well, do you guys have plans for another album or anything like that?
Yeah, we're meeting up in Florida later this month.
Nice.
And we're going to be, we're going to sit down, have a few beers, a few cocktails, and discuss it. We definitely want to do it. It really is. Time scheduling was always our worst enemy with that band. Firehouse continued to be a very, very busy band. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, that's why we really couldn't go out live with Rubicon Cross. We only did one run of shows. And we all wanted to do them. We just couldn't find the time, because, if we book a show with Rubicon Cross, someone like Rocklahoma would suddenly come in and say, we want Firehouse. And of course, us playing a, 300 capacity room compared to Firehouse having to then cancel Rocklahoma, it's just not feasible, Yeah. So, it was always a little difficult to schedule that. But do you know what? We're going to talk about it. And I'm sure after a few gin and tonics, we'll start writing something.
Nice.
We need to book a Tyketto Rubicon Cross Firehouse tour.
We talked about that, actually. We talked about Rubicon Cross going out with Firehouse. I think it would be so demanding, especially for him to do two sets. We're not getting any younger. And he's got to sing all those really high notes. So I don't envy him.
Right. Well, I noticed there's several videos on YouTube through this e-music workshop that you're doing lessons on some technical stuff.
Yeah.
Is that like an ongoing thing, or was that like a one-time thing? Because I noticed they're like from the past year or two.
Yeah, they the guy that done the videos is Rick Beato, the guy that produced my solo album and Rubicon Cross and Furion, and the engineer GL is the guy that did the editing on them. So it was basically the same team as that I've recorded all those albums with. And I don't know if you're aware of what Rick does, but he has this company called Neural, which is a really fascinating company about basically development of children's learning skills. And that's really taken over. So Music Workshop had to take a back seat. But I am actually, if my wife buys me what I want her to buy me for Christmas, then you know, I should have some nice GoPros, and I'm actually going to start trying to do my own videos out of my studio here. So it will be a continuous thing, but it won't be the the same people behind it.
Nice.
But I want to do it because you know, I get a lot of requests for people to, you know, tell them about, you know, certain licks or riffs in the songs and stuff. So I'll probably go over a lot of the material of the bands that I've been in with some videos as well. So the amount of videos should rack up pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. I was researching and watched a lot of them in the sweep pick. I play, and the sweep picking one just, you know, it made my head spin. It was crazy. I really appreciated it.
You know what? That's what sweep picking is. I mean, it's something I've been into since I started getting into technical playing.
Yeah.
And so when I went to GIT in London, the Guitar Institute of Technology, I remember I read the pamphlet for it, and there was this section on sweep picking, and I was just mesmerized by it, you know. And I'd only really heard, let me think, who had I heard? I'd heard like Paul Gilbert do it a couple of times in a Mr. Big track, and I was just like, what is that? How, you know? And it like the sound of it, I'm like, that's not possible. How can you do that? Like, you got all the way from the bottom to the top of the guitar in about like under a second, you know. So it fascinated me, and so I've been a big advocate of sweep picking ever since then, and I love doing it. It's just something that, I mean, I could sit there in front of the TV and just sit there running up and down those arpeggios. Yeah. They're just like little feel goods, you know. They get the endorphins going.
Yeah.
So
you nailed it, man.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I mean, people are now taking it to the absolute extremes. You know, you listen to you know, Dragon Force and stuff like that.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
you know, these guys are, you know, they're really taking it, you know, as if it's like taking guitar licks into the octagon, you know, turning into sport. But yeah, I love playing it. Thanks for noticing that.
Oh, no problem.
Do you do one-on-one lessons at all, or?
Do I do sweep picking?
No, I just meant one-on-one lessons in general with students.
I don't anymore. I used to. There is a kid that I teach here in Atlanta. He's the only person. His name's Ben Bluestein, and he is about 12 years old, and he is a phenomenal player. Not through my making. I help him because I think he's going to be an incredible star when he's older. He just has, you know, as a guitar player, you know, there's just these nuances within famous players that's what makes them so good. It's not the speed necessarily. It's just everything. It's, you know, it's their feel. It's how their vibrato is, the bending, you know, how they transition between positions on the fretboard, and this kid's just got it, man. I mean, it's ridiculous to watch. You know, he'll sit there and play Steve Vai pieces. He'll sit there and play Guthrie Govan pieces. You know, and he's not even a teenager,
wow.
and he's just so humble about it. You know, he'd be like, "Do you want to play that song?" He's like, "Yeah, okay." You know, it's just like it's like he's being asked to mow the lawn or something. You know, I'm like, come on, man, get some fire going on. You've got all this playing. But I taught for 15 years in England. I taught at schools across the country, so I was very, very used to that process. And it's at this point, it's not something I'll be going back into. But I like the idea of the video thing. No one can answer back.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned Steve Vai a couple of times, and in a couple nights we're going to see the Passion Warfare tour here in Tulsa. And I noticed on Facebook you had saw it this past week. Yeah, so what were your thoughts, or how was the show?
Initially, my first thought was breaking my fingers and starting a new career. It was ridiculously good. Yeah. I'd seen him. Do you know what? I saw him when he played in Whitesnake. That's the first time I ever saw him.
Wow.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That was that was pretty mesmerizing actually, because he was, I mean, he really just had the part down. He looked exactly like Jack Butler in Crossroads, in that era.
Yeah.
And then the next time I saw him in England, and I've got to tell you that one performance in England that I saw him on, he was playing this track. I forget the name of the track, and it just really started like moving me. And for a moment, I took my eyes off the stage and I looked around, and there was like people in the crowd around me, like tearing up, and like wiping their eyes and stuff. And it was this, and he finished the song, and there was this rapturous applause, and then it went quiet, and he just stepped up to the microphone and he went, "Wow, did you guys feel that as well?" And it was weird. It was like this whole thing in this room. I can't even explain it, but it was just this, artist giving to the crowd and the crowd giving back. I know that sounds really hippie and weird, but it totally happened, and it was bizarre. It never happened to me at a concert before. That's why as soon as I heard that he was doing this Passion and Warfare thing, I was like, I'm going. There's no question.
Yeah.
And I actually took my wife along with me because I was like, you need to see this. And she sat there on Facebook on her phone. I stood in front of her so no one on the stage could see her using her phone. So I don't think she appreciated it as much as me. But it was amazing, and I can absolutely guarantee you're going to have a great time.
Nice. Awesome.
He's actually doing a raffle. There's a guitar that he is slowly painting, noodling on with a Sharpie. One of his, the Gem 7V. Mm-hmm. It's up in the merch booth, and you can buy raffle tickets for it, and all the money's going to go to a charity. So that's cool as well. I bought a ticket. Don't buy a ticket because it means I don't. My chances are.
We won't.
Well, man, we appreciate your time.
Oh no, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to talk about this. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, this is great. Thank you.
And also, if anyone out there wants to check out more stuff, I've got a brand new website. chrisgreenmusic.com, and you can read all about the meaning. There's a digital booklet available that you can buy with the EP there, and it has an explanation into each track on the album and how it was written. And at the moment there's like a limited edition run of physical CDs that are all signed that you can buy on there as well.
I ordered one today.
You did?
Yes.
Good for you. Thank you.
No problem.
That's great. Well, I really, really do appreciate the support, guys. It means a lot to me.
Yes, absolutely. There you go. Chris Green of Tyketto, Rubicon Cross, and of course, solo guitarist extraordinaire. We appreciate him taking the time out to do that. So thank you to him. Thank you to Chip from Chipster PR. Like I said earlier, you got to get yourself this Unveil EP. You got to get yourself Tyketto's new album Reach, and you got to get yourself the Rubicon Cross album.
That's right. Yeah, buy them all.
Definitely. All this stuff's available on Amazon and iTunes, and you can buy the physical copies through the websites, of course, as well. He mentioned there at the end, when we were talking about Steve Vai, that he his first thought was to, break his fingers and quit playing guitar, but I don't know. I mean, sure, Steve Vai is at the top of the list on the world's greatest guitarist, right up there, but I don't think Chris Green has anything to complain about.
No, he did.
At the level this man is at,
Go watch some of his YouTube videos. He's extremely, extremely talented, and just, proficient. It's wizardry. Really is.
Yeah. Well, like I mentioned earlier, chrisgreenmusic.com. That's his website. That's where you can pick up this new album. Do it. Our website is thethunderunderground.com. We've got all our previous podcasts on there. We've got some reviews up. We're also on soundcloud.com/thunder-underground. We're on Facebook, YouTube, and on our YouTube channel. Click subscribe because we're always putting up some reaction stuff now. We have a review of the new Metallica album, a review of the new Avenged Sevenfold album, a review of a Black Sabbath concert, a review of the Metallica singles when they were coming out and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So get on there and be on the lookout for more stuff like that. We're going to have a review soon of Jason's thoughts on what Floor Jansen said about Slayer.
Oh, God, yeah.
And
She-
then... or we could
She
talk-
don't give a fuck, does she? Oh, jeez. Hey, that's cool, though, you know.
Hey,
It
people's got
takes
opinions.
balls to say that.
I love the woman. She's beautiful. She's got an amazing voice, and she's got balls.
That's right. That is right.
Well, we're also on Twitter and Instagram and Periscope, which we don't use that often, but we do on occasion. So
Yes.
you might see a Periscope from this show coming this weekend
Yeah.
in Dallas. Speaking of the stuff we were talking about earlier, it's kind of along that vein of the melodic rock.
Yeah, we're going to
There's-
see, yeah, go ahead.
I know I was going to say it's called Hair Metal Christmas. Is that
Yeah.
what the thing's called? At the Bomb Factory in Dallas. And we've got, here, just, what do we got on that?
There's Pretty Boy Floyd, Tough, Slaughter, King's X, Kicks. I know there's a couple others I can't think of right now.
Lynch Mob and
Lynch
Lillian
Mob.
Axe.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, you
So,
know,
speaking of guitarist extraordinaire, we've got Steve Blaze, we've got George Lynch.
yes, I mean, that's going to be a hell of a show.
Yeah.
Hell of an afternoon, hell of an evening.
And King's X right there in the middle of all those bands is kind of weird, but
Yeah.
they always kind of get thrown into these things and
Yeah.
they do it. They're, they have no issue with playing them. And,
Yeah.
I'm greatly looking forward to that because
The-
we saw him open for Motley Crue in 94, right?
Yeah.
And then, I saw Doug Pinnick in one of his side bands like 5 or 6 years ago, but haven't seen King's X in over 20 years.
But yeah, the King's X at this show, that's kind of like, what is it? The starfish and the hot dog flavored water is, to use a Limp Bizkit reference.
Yeah.
You'll like that.
Yeah.
But they're kind of the odd man out on that deal. So,
Yeah.
but I mean, it's going to be a great show. I can't wait.
Yeah. I'm sure you'll hear reviews from that and
Oh yeah, definitely.
maybe even a podcast or two if we're lucky.
Hopefully.
But speaking of that, we talked about Chris Broderick earlier. We've had him on this podcast
Yeah.
from Megadeth and Active Defiance.
Yeah.
We've had on guys from Great White and Europe and Warrant, Trickster, Bullet Boys. We've had on guys get heavier stuff like Chris mentioned in the episode, The Sword. We've had on
Yes,
Kyle
and-
from The Sword.
And, fun fact, yes, we did have on The Sword. Chris Green also mentioned he likes Baroness, which is a band I have totally gotten into the last year or so. They kick ass. Just wanted to throw that in.
The Purple Album's great.
Yes, it is amazing.
Yeah, we've had on guys from Crowbar. Well, obviously, guys, we've had on Kirk Winstein on this thing twice.
Hmm.
And actually, 2 of the members of the band chimed in on that. And we've had on guys from Drowning Pool, Soil, Scattered Hamlet, Wino from The Obsessed.
Yes.
Which, speaking of, they just had a new track drop recently.
That was a great
It was
song.
like
great
a re-recording
track.
of an older song, I think, but it's great.
Yeah, badass.
And they've got a new album coming in 2017, so that's definitely something to look forward to.
Yep. We've had on Eric Kluber from Ironaut,
Yeah.
Devin Micah, 3D in Your Face.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we've had some good ones.
Yeah. And we get way out there with Ian Moore and Shooter Jennings. If you like just music, we stick to the hard rock and metal, but if we get a chance to get someone on that we're, fans of, we're definitely jump at the opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. It doesn't have to be one certain thing.
Paula Abdul will be on here next year whenever she plays the BOK.
God.
I'm just saying.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
But-
that means it's time to go.
Yeah. 97 previous episodes, soundcloud.com/Thunder-Underground, thethunderunderground.com, and once again, chrisgreenmusic.com, where you can purchase a physical signed CD of Unveil, or just get on iTunes or Amazon and pay for the thing, and I think it's $5 for the digital tracks.
Nice.
Once again, thanks to Chris, and thank you for listening, and until next time.
Thunder Underground, y'all.